Is Toon Break going to change WuWa's meta? Let's talk about it. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. So, now we finally know what WuWa 3.0's gimmick is going to be. I've talked about it in the past couple of videos, saying that while I am very excited for the new characters, it's pretty hard to guess what the new mechanic is going to be, and how these characters are going to benefit from it. But now, Kuro has shown off what I assume is going to be WuWa 3.0's main mechanic, at least that's what I think. And that would be none other than tunability, which, honestly, it seems like a pretty good mechanic from first impressions, and I actually have a pretty positive outlook on it so far, and I think it could influence the meta in some interesting ways. Let's talk about it. Okay, so essentially, it is very simple. In fact, we already have an event that is currently ongoing that lets us try out the mechanic. You're able to pick buffs based on tuning, and then you're able to actually try and utilize the mechanic yourself and see how it would function. Essentially, you build up enemies off tune level, and then whenever you fill up the bar, and they enter what is called the mistuned state, you're able to cause Toon Break. In the event, this consists of you attacking them as a tacit discord and doing some big damage. However, in regular gameplay, I assume that this is going to be, as it's shown on the website, where you do some kind of special move. And as for more elite enemies, you're able to cast Toon Break skill, which is something else you can do whenever they reach the mistuned state. So this seems to be a new way of dealing damage, and let me tell you now, this is a very interesting sounding mechanic for a couple of reasons. Now, negative status on paper sounded really good too, but the reason why I'm not really worried about Toon Break is simply because negative status needed another type of character in order for its teams to function. It was built on the foundation of a DPS and an applicant for that respective negative status, whereas with Toon Break, they're showcasing it with Yang Yang, and from the event and what I'm seeing on the website, I believe that this is something that every character is going to be able to trigger. Now we're gonna have to wait until the patch actually launches to see if that's the case or not, but it seems to be the case. It could be a Spectral Rover situation, or perhaps just Yang Yang in particular is able to utilize Toon Break, and then the 3.0 characters will be able to. There could be a catch, but as far as I'm concerned, this seems to be a mechanic that any character is going to be able to utilize, and we're already able to test it out in the currently ongoing event. So, why do I think this is a good thing? Well, first of all, it's very cool that this is accessible to such a wide array of characters if this does end up being a thing that everybody's going to be able to do, because this is going to add so much testing to older characters. We'll have to see how important it is to actually include Toon Break within your rotations, because right now, we have pretty limited information on the mechanic, but we are at least able to test it out. And this is very interesting, because here's the thing. We see how it works in-game currently, we now know what the mechanic is, and we know that it's going to be a larger part of gameplay in the future, but how are the new characters going to utilize this? That is something very interesting that I'm intrigued by. But at least in terms of why I think that Toon Break is going to be healthy for the meta is because it could bring in an opportunity to bring old characters back into the meta, because while I'm not sure how strong this is going to be, if it is something that every character is going to be able to do, and it's going to be of substance, there is a very high chance that in a game like Weathering Waves with complex tech, there is probably going to be some kind of thing that you can do to make characters that previously just weren't that good in the meta feel somewhat substantial again with this new mechanic. Like I said, we're literally just gonna have to wait and see and test, but the amount of opportunity that we're getting with this is amazing. There is something interesting here. I was not expecting them to come up with something like this. It's such a simple idea, but the fact that it seems to be able to apply to any character, that means a lot, because it means that everybody is gonna be able to benefit from this, and it might be able to spice up some characters' rotations. Now, with that being said, there are a few things I should say. I don't know if Toon Break is going to apply to every single enemy in the game, or if it's going to be something that the character themselves can inherently do, based on whether they have a certain weapon equipped, or a certain echo set equipped, or something like that. So it also is going to depend on that. Sure, it's great if every character can trigger Toon Break, but is this going to be something that's going to be effective in every combat scenario, or is it mostly just going to be effective on the new bosses? Well, if you take a look at the website, you can clearly see that they are using existing echoes to test out Toon Break. So, because of that, I am pretty confident that this is going to be a thing that is going to be prevalent on regular enemies that do already exist in the game. Now, how common it's going to be, I'm not sure. This could just be a permanent gameplay addition to Wuthering Waves, and every single enemy from here on out is going to have a Toon Break feature, in which case, once again, this is just adding a new layer to combat, and that is inherently a very exciting thing. that is really going to spice up rotations, and this is so much better than negative statuses right from the get-go, because this doesn't really seem like it's going to need another 5-star character in order to supplement it being useful. Now, like I said, we still have to wait, because we don't really have a whole lot of information on this mechanic, but we have enough to kind of get how it works, and I say that we have enough information to know, but this is at the very least going to be something interesting. Now, how good it's actually going to end up being, and whether it's going to save some older characters, or whether it's going to make some niche characters better or not, a lot of testing is going to have to be done in that regard, but I think that that in of itself is exciting. There is something to test out here, there is something unique here, and I just think that's really cool. So, I personally think that this is only going to be a good addition to the meta, assuming that they handle this in a way that is accessible, and that assuming it's going to actually be of substance. And I personally think it's hard to make something like this not interesting. It could be very cool, honestly, and I personally have faith in this. And now we kind of have more of a direction as to what we may think the 3.0 characters are going to do. They might have something to do with this whole tomb break thing. And another thing is that I'm more confident that they'll actually explore it within 3.0. With negative status, we only really got that fully explored in 2.1, or at least started to explore it in 2.1 with Phoebe. However, with Tomb Break, I believe that the 3.0 characters are going to be able to use it right from the get-go, so it's likely that they're going to have something in their kit, maybe, that's going to really tune well to it. Haha, tune well to Tomb Break. Alright, I'm sorry. But you get the point. I think that there's going to be something there that's going to supplement this mechanic nicely. Now, I'm not particularly sure if that's going to be the case. They could maybe just make it a thing that everybody can do, and we're not going to give it any special focus with the 3.0 characters, but I don't really think that will be the case. I think that if they're introducing a new mechanic, they are probably going to want to sell it a bit more on the new characters. So I do expect Linny and Morny to have something to do with Tomb Break. I'm not too sure what exactly they're going to do, but I have some expectation that there's going to be something there. And I'm excited about it, to be honest. It seems like there's going to be special moves involved here, and I will say, I don't know if every single character in the game is going to get their own unique special move. That's something that I could actually suggest could be a 3.0 gimmick. Maybe every character kind of has a basic stock move that they do whenever they trigger Tomb Break. However, whenever a 3.0 character does it, maybe they get some kind of special effect, or they have a special animation, or something along those lines. I'd say that would actually be a neat way to incorporate it, because then every character can access it, everyone can leverage it, but there's still something special there that Kuro can use in order to make it more special in the 3.0 characters. However, if they choose to literally just make special animations for every single character in the game for Tomb Break, that would be extremely impressive. I'm not expecting it. That would be ridiculously impressive, to be honest. There are quite a lot of characters in this game, all of which have high quality animations. Even the older ones, in my opinion, still hold up pretty well to this day if you look at them just by themselves. So I think it would be a little insane if they really did give everybody a special Tomb Break animation. I mean, obviously, they're gonna have to give them a new attack animation, but I'm talking about like a proper special move. But like I said, we've already seen how this works in the event, and whenever you trigger Tomb Break in the event, you turn into a Tacit Discord, so they could just have you turn into an Echo, and this would save Kuro having to animate a special move for literally every single character. But if we want to inhale a bit of hopium here, maybe the reason they're doing it like that in the event is because in 3.0, they do genuinely plan to make a special new animation for every character, and just expand their animation kit. That would be insane, but I'm not expecting it because that would be a ridiculous amount of efforts from Kuro's part. But maybe every character that releases from here on out would have it, I'm not sure. Like I said, we kind of don't know where we're going to go with this, and I am cautiously optimistic, because I was very excited for negative statuses as well, but they ended up not really being handled to my liking, and I would say that a lot of people could agree that they weren't the best. But with this Tomb Break mechanic here, I think it is good to be cautiously optimistic. Obviously, I'm not going to go all in and be like, whoa, this is crazy, I think this is right from the get-go going to have absolutely no flaws whatsoever. It could very easily have flaws. Maybe it's just not going to be good on older characters straight up and only 3.0 characters are able to utilize it. Maybe it's just also going to end up being really restrictive and you are going to need specific support in order to make Tomb Break feel really good. There could be specific circumstances in which it just doesn't feel right. Now, I will add, let's say that you did need a specific support for Tomb Break, but they made your freaking Alto playable, or something crazy like that. In that case, I would forgive it, because if it really is just a case of making every character good if you just get this one character, how's that any different from pulling Shorekeeper? Fair enough, I think that's fine. so I am curious. I do think we will get some kind of support that is good with Tomb Break, by the way. I don't think they're literally going to avoid doing that on the whole. I just hope we don't get anything as specific as negative status, where generally characters were designed for one other character. Now, I would say that the supports for negative status were handled pretty well. Phoebe was able to DPS if she wanted to, and Shakona's also just good for all arrows, so they're still good pulls even if you're not interested in negative statuses. But either way, I do still hope that the DPSs for Tomb Break, because I do assume that 3.0 is going to have some very Tomb Break-centric characters, is handled well. All around, I think that this is going to be very interesting. This looks like a really good mechanic, just from first impressions. It's fun in the event, it's interesting in the event, and while I'm not sure how this is going to influence the meta, but the whole prospect of being able to do a big burst of damage and perhaps making new rotations up for older characters, that just sounds very interesting. And this could end up being a very cool idea for 3.0 characters, so all around, cautiously optimistic. Hopefully this video is able to tell you about WuWa introducing Tomb Break. This has been Juice, signing out, and you could really say I'm singing a positive tune about Tomb Break, huh?